So as the sound of the bowl goes away, I just want you to take your sweet time and just feel into how your body receives the sound and what happens as it ebbs. This is a beautiful time to take a self check-in and just notice, how am I feeling in my body? Noticing how your feet are touching the ground, your butt is sitting in a chair. Just noticing that wherever you are, whoever you are actually being held by the earth right now. And what does it feel like to receive that holding? Yeah, gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And if you just take a scan of your internal landscape, just notice somatically, kinesthetically, where are the bumps, where are the valleys, what's tight, what's relaxed. Just feel you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, gorgeous. I see some of you moving, letting the body just move you. And then I'm going to invite you to take a really juicy breath, like a really exuberant breath, luxurious breath, as if you're breathing with your whole body, like right down from the toes and every pore in your body. Inhale all the way in. Yummy, yummy singing sound all the way in, all the way out, all the way through. Beautiful breath. Maybe even out the mouth. Mm-hmm. And then just let it go and come back to what I call center. And take your sweet time and really, when you are grounded in yourself, then open the eyes and come back to us. Only then. And this is the time where we start to attend to who's here with us. How are we here together? Right? There's so many beautiful people and we don't know so many of them. So just tuning in and seeing who's here now. Maybe attending to each square on your screen just with a little loving attention and just saying, oh, look at the flavor of this one and the flavor of this one and this one. And how we feel being here together, as if we're sitting in the same room. Where in fact, whatever room you're in, we're in it with you. So how does it feel to be in this room together? Mm-hmm. Tending to a group field. Gorgeous. So welcome to Listening for Collective Healing. This is something that is really dear to my heart, given the current landscape in the world. And the question that I'm really holding for our call is, how can listening deepen healing in us? And what does it really feel like to hear and be heard? Especially when we disagree. So I'm going to ask you today to take some bold leaps with me. And I'll tell you, the disclaimer is this session is being recorded for the benefit of those who can't be here with us. And I invite you to be vulnerable. I invite you to be vulnerable and authentic, because that's where the juice lies, and that's where healing can really start to happen inside us. The deeper you go, the deeper we all go. And if there's something that you don't want to share with strangers, I totally respect and trust you to hold that boundary. And maybe before we go into it, who am I? Why am I doing this? I forgot to tell you about me. I'm Ishita Sharma, and I live in Boston, and I'm the founder of a holistic consultancy. It's called Come to Center. which is the name of my practice and a call to the universe, like for all of us to actually come and live from this place in us that is centered and grounded and present in the way that we show up, in the way that we interact. And I work as a transformational coach, a healer, a facilitator. And this is where the rubber meets the road for me, which is spirituality. What does it look like in relationship? What does it look like to live our dharma in the fire of relationship with the world, with ourselves, with the larger global picture? So that's where I come from. And truth and reconciliation, I'm sure you are all a little familiar with, is a decentralized effort to bring people like us together into these fields where we can catalyze healing for the whole planet. So I'm really, really grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for choosing to spend 75 minutes with me. I'm stoked about it. I would love to begin with just one line. Who are you and where are you joining us from? Would you guys unmute yourselves and jump in? And maybe I'll just call on people because it's more ordered that way. How about Eileen?
I'm Eileen Bergelson, and I'm joining from the center of New York City.
Brilliant, thank you. And Anita?
Hi, I'm Anita Simon, and I'm joining from Dorchester in Boston.
Welcome. And Ozioma?
Hi, Ozioma. I'm originally from Nigeria, but grew up in New York, but I'm actually in Lisbon, Portugal at the moment. So.
Wow. And Hari?
Hi, I'm Hari Nair. I'm calling in from Toronto.
Beautiful. And how do I say your name? S. Sahu.
Sahu, yeah.
Sahu? Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, Sahu. Yeah, so I'm Sahu, and I'm joining all of you from Bangalore in India.
My homeland. Thank
Oh.
you. And Suparna?
Hi, I'm Suparna Krishnani, and I'm from Bombay, India.
Beautiful. Welcome. And Anna Paula, I think, can you hear us?
Yes, nice to meet you. Sorry about my video, it doesn't work.
Oh.
I am Anna, and I'm from Brazil.
Beautiful. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So I'm going to mute everybody who is not speaking. Don't mind that. And I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I'd like you to unmute and just speak the answer as it comes to you. And the question I want you to really feel into is, what gets in the way of listening for you? I know in the current context of the world, with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the wealth inequality coming to a head, with the global pandemic, we're all having to have conversations that we normally might shy away from, right? And a lot of us actually want to step in and have these conversations. And I'm curious, like, what's been your experience? Where are the places that you notice get difficult or feel stuck? Just unmute yourself and speak to us.
For me, it's a preoccupation with myself and my desires, almost to the exclusion of anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. I think part of it for me is the judgments I have and the internal monologue that comes with those judgments, whether it be of the other person, the other situation, or myself. So that gets in the way a lot.
Wow, thank you both for starting us off with that.
I think that we listen to answer and give our opinion rather than actually listening to what the other person has to say. the answer jumps in even before the other person completed their statement or sentence.
Isn't that the truth? Is there anyone on this call who doesn't see each of these conundrums in themselves? Right? Like I certainly can identify with what all three of you have shared. Anything else?
I think there's a few, everything resonates that's been said so far. So this is more of an in addition to we're talking about judgments, and there's also these stories, the monologues. And I think the other piece that comes up for me in these conversations is the sense of certainty sometimes in the people that are already speaking around me, and this feeling of, I don't know where the room is. I don't know how to bring the room or contribute to the room. And like Suparna was saying, this sense of being able to embody receptivity and listening, and in the hopes too that that will also be reflected back.
Mm-hmm.
I would echo that, Eileen and Hari, like the judgment, and it's like when somebody else's beliefs are so far away from mine, I guess it's a form of judgment, but that I don't even know how to have a conversation because I'm angry with the way they feel if it's not inclusionary, or it's the individualism versus collectivism, and it's so I don't know how to come to a middle ground, because I guess I automatically tend to most often feel like they can't come to a middle ground either. Like we're both rooted at our other ends of the spectrum, and I don't feel like I always have the right words at the ready to be able to foster a calm conversation.
Beautiful. So just let's take a breath. Let's just close our eyes and just feel all these knots that have been named, right? I can't listen because I'm judging. I'm worried there isn't enough room for me. I get caught in my own desires. I don't know how to bridge the gap between how far the other person feels from me. Just let these words drop in your lake. And really, like, I want you to feel kinesthetically, like what it feels like in you when you know you are not able to hear the other person. Right? What's the feeling in me? How do I experience myself in that interaction where I know I am not listening, and perhaps I even know that I will not be heard, or I don't feel heard. So just explore those two feelings and get specific, right? Like if you can, I want you to bring up the last conversation, which was really difficult, where you felt the stuckness. And just notice what was happening in your reality. Like what were the judgments that were separating you? What were the fears standing between you and the other person? What was the story you were believing about the person you were speaking to, about yourself and your relationship? Right. And what do you notice? What do you notice? So there was a Rumi quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it at best. It says, "The only thing separating me from you is my idea of you." Right? So what are the ideas that we're sitting and holding dear and near to us? Especially when we feel that tension. I'd love to hear from you if you want to share. Like, what do you notice? What comes up for you as you say that, as I say that? What are those ideas?
I feel irritation because I think it's more of a fear of not being heard. And you know that the other person is not getting your point and you're not getting their point. And it's more of a personal fear of not being heard that you don't listen to the other person either.
Mm-hmm. So you're not sure that they're actually going to receive you, which makes it even harder to receive them. Right? Right. What else? I wanna seed this a little bit, right? So go ahead, Anita.
I think some of it is a desire to help change somebody else's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to want to help change them, because like my ideal might feel like I'm a better person. I want you to be and I want to enlighten you and help broaden your perspectives and make you see life and the world more objectively. And so I mean, maybe that's a form of elitism, but that we can't bridge that gap, like you said before.
Mm-hmm. So beautiful. That's such a juicy one, right? Like, what happens when I want to change you in any way, right? When I want to change you, I'm actually not in relation with you as you are. Right? Can we feel that? And what I'm doing is I'm trying to contort you into my idea of how you should be. And now, just before we move on to the next one, this is so juicy, right? Like, can you guys just feel in you? Close your eyes if you need to. Just check it out. And Seema, hi, Seema. We can't see your beautiful face. So I hope you can adjust the camera and join the conversation. I know you feel free to jump in. But like, close your eyes and feel what it feels like in you when you're on the other side of that equation. Right? What does it feel like in you when you know the person you're speaking to is trying to convince you, is trying to make you think like them or agree with you? Right? So what's that feeling? Oh my God, I got uncomfortable just sitting here feeling it. Right? What's the response? What does your pelvis feel like? What does your heart feel like? What does your gut feel like? What does your throat feel like?
My entire body kind of stiffened because I felt, I mean, when I was visualizing what you were saying, it felt like I'm trying to stand and somebody just dragging me, not allowing me to stand. So
So now we're in a power struggle, right? Suddenly from conversation, we've gotten into a power struggle where one is trying to have power over another, and that causes reaction in both. Feel that? Yeah, go ahead, Eileen.
This is reminding me of two things, and I've been absorbing what's been said and where we're feeling and wondering which to mention first. But I had a situation with a friend for many years that then we worked on a project together, and there was a lot of misunderstandings and layers of not meeting in the center. And we agreed to have a sit down at a coffee shop. And I was really in a lot of tumult coming into this, because every interaction leading up to this was this kind of, it was very aggressive. There was me trying to explain, but then it being sort of angry. And then we weren't really taking each other. And as we sat down, he said, how glad I was for them, that we could be here together and to have this conversation. And I would really love for us to have a conversation where we could hear each other without anybody having to be right, without anybody having to be wrong, that we could simply speak freely and to give that to each other. And what did that feel like for him? Did that feel okay? And it opened a door. It changed it changed what happened next. And I think it changed the course for us and what was heading in a really negative direction. And then the other piece is that Alan Alda, who started with Stony Brook University, the communication for the research of the science of communication, said he doesn't believe, and he comes from an improv background like I do, that he's like, I don't believe you're really listening if you're not willing to be changed by the other person. Okay, so it's this idea of receptivity starts at home,
Right. That's so beautifully said. So really feel that, like, you guys are bringing up so many really important moments in this conversation, right? Like we've all been on both sides of that equation. Unfortunately, I have not figured out how to enable Zoom breakout rooms in this call, which I usually see. So we can't do the exercise that I really wanted you to, but I'm going to improvise, and I want you to work with me. This is a really triggering exercise for many, which is why I want to bring it forth in this discussion, because this discussion is about how do we listen when we are triggered. And I was going to have you guys split into pairs and argue both sides of a question that you feel really strongly about. And the question that I might offer us right now would be, the world is heading in the right direction. Okay. So in the next 5 minutes, I want one volunteer. Is there anyone here willing to speak as if they really believe this statement and argue as if that is the truth, the capital T truth? Really feel it. This is, so we're going to do both sides. 5 minutes for the world is heading in the right direction and the world is heading in the wrong direction. We're going to give voice to both those polarities. And sweet, I have a volunteer. Yes, Ozioma. And hold that thought. So before we jump into this, right, I expect it to be a juicy experience. And I'm going to invite you to listen in a particular way as the person speaks. Right? So 3 things. I'm going to try to make them 3, not 4, because people like 3s. The first one is, how do I feel in my body? Right? How am I feeling receiving these words? So part of my attention is in me, right? When we talk about listening, we're really talking about receptivity. We're really talking about presence. Right? It's impossible to listen. It's impossible to receive live when we're not present. So the question I'm asking you to hold is, how am I being while I am listening? I say that again. And even as I say it, I want you to just feel it in yourself. You look in your experience. I'm going to say the words, just track it. How am I being while I'm listening? as you hear my voice, check out how your attention is focused. So the first thing is, how am I being while I'm listening? The second is paying attention to me, inside me, to the place where the words are coming from, and the space between me and the speaker. So does this make sense? So I'm attuning, I'm using my attention to really attend in a very specific way. I'm attending to my inner experience. I'm listening to me as I listen out. And I'm listening to where you are speaking from. Like even as I'm blah, 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 listen to it this way. Like try it with me here. Where are her words coming from? How are they landing in me? And what's happening? How is it feeling between us? And the third part, this might be the most nuanced, is listening as if I know whatever is being said is both true and untrue. Right? So how can I listen for the truth in what's being said and the untruth? So we say in many spiritual traditions actually, that the truth can never be articulated. It can only be pointed to. So I listen as if everything is a very important, very, very precious part of a much bigger whole. And I can't have the whole if I don't listen to this one. But I know it's not the whole truth. So maybe I will write this in a chat because I use lots of words and they might be foxy. So I will send you these instructions, but any questions? In where words come from and space between. Number 3, listen for truth and untruth. Any questions? Any resistances? Okay, so if that's clear, who would like to start us off and speak to the world is heading in the right direction? Brilliant. Thank you. And I invite you all to really be with Ozioma as we hear her.
Okay, start? Okay. You know, I really feel that the world is headed in the right direction. I mean, we have such amazing leaders like Donald Trump and Bolsonaro around the world, and they're just like really presenting to us what it's like to be, I think, a leader. And I think it's great that leaders are self-centered and put their own countries first and really don't care about, you know, equality or collaboration or connection. I also think the world is going into an amazing place as it relates to climate, because I think that climate change doesn't really exist and that like we human beings are the best, and we're like, this world was created for us to just like pillage and plunder and like create our high rises and our mansions and to just eat all the kinds of foods we want, and who cares about the animals?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to ask you to step into the role of someone who really truly believes this. Right? Really. I'll give you a line, maybe I can do it. But feel the difference in my voice. Okay? The world is going in a really great direction. Everyone's looting and pillaging, and that's okay because everyone for themselves, right? You can hear my disingenuity behind that, right? Now I'm gonna put on the clothes of someone who lives this reality. That's how I want to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, I really believe that the world is heading in a direction that's healing for all of us. Sometimes we can't see it, but I know there are people in this planet working really hard for collective healing. In fact, like us. And I think we're going towards a really deeply cohesive future. Look at that. All of the things that are happening right now are just symptoms. They're the last hurrah because a whole new paradigm is being birthed. Look around you. The chaos is do you see?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't understanding the question then, because you're saying to speak as if what I believe about the world going in the right direction, or about that the world is going in the right direction. You know what I mean? Like I was speaking to the I guess the assumption that it's not, and then I'm speaking that it's not.
Right.
As opposed to speaking what I believe is true about the world headed in the right direction. So you want me to speak about what I believe, not to step into the belief that someone else.
I want you to argue what you don't believe.
Well, that's what I don't believe.
Yeah, as if you really do.
Okay, got it. Okay.
You want to try it? I know it's not easy.
No, it's not.
This is like years of debate club where they would have us argue both sides, right? Like, so it's like you put on the character, like you think of the person who you know, right? And you just put them on and you speak from them. Try it. Okay. 2 minutes.
I really believe that the world is headed in the right direction. I think that, you know, the momentary challenges that we're seeing right now as it relates to climate change or some of the issues we see with leadership, that they're just, they're not that significant. And I think a lot of people are making a bigger deal than it actually really is. I think that we're going to see that in due course and in a short period of time, that that what the world looks like today is not what it's going to look like tomorrow, because we're actually moving in a direction. And I believe that amazing leaders like Donald Trump, you know, some people may not agree with some of his policies, but he's proven to be a very savvy businessman. And, you know, he has a great brand. And I think that the American brand has kind of gone down. And, you know, a person like Donald Trump is exactly the kind of person that we need to kind of bring that sparkle and bring that that amazingness back to America. And the only way that can be done is by putting America first, you know, because America needs to focus on America. And that old story of, you know, really trying to be there for the rest of the world, I don't think it's really gotten America very far. And I think the fact that America has actually lost a lot of its strength internationally is because it was focused everywhere else, and really should start focusing on home, on number one.
My goodness. Thank you. Thank you so much. So everybody, can you just feel what that felt like in you? Just notice what came up for you. And Ozioma, notice how that felt for you. Wow. Oh my goodness. How does that feel to hear and receive? And just stay with that. Just keep it in you, and we'll have a download once we're done with the second part. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer to argue the other part of the equation, which is the world is not heading in the right direction? The world is heading in the wrong direction. This is asking us to be very courageous, and thank you to everyone here. Mm. All right. That's still moving through my body. So let's do something before we go to part 2. Let's just shake it off. Can everybody just blah, 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 like shake, get that pelvis moving wherever you are. I'm literally in a 2.5 foot corridor, so I can't really stand up, but if you can, just shake that off. Like, let those words fall to the ground. Let those feelings be clear. If you can make silly noises. Right? Like all of it. Let it wash away. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, now I feel more ready. How is the group? Yeah, Eileen, thank you for volunteering. That would be gorgeous. Let's hear it. The world is heading in the wrong direction. And we'll do it in 2 parts like we did before. I think that was valuable. We'll go for 2 minutes and then we'll pause and just check in and then go again. Cool. Helps us really embody the role. Right. Right. Meow.
When I look around at what is happening today, not just here where I happen to be, but everywhere, I get extremely disheartened because I see this world spiraling into an incredibly dark place. I feel like the worst in our potential is continually rising to the surface, and we're leading from our baser instincts. And the result of that is that we're causing pain, strife, and separation to each other. We are destroying the gift that is this planet that we happen to be lucky to be living in. And none of these things, none of the life forces are limitless resources. Our ability to be kind and to love and to have beauty and oxygen, these things will die if we don't nourish them. And the responsibility is for us to do the hard thing, which seems to be harder and harder to do as we get sucked and tempted into short-term rewards, instant gratification, and this idea of having it over somebody else.
Thank you. Let's everybody just take a pause and feel what that feels like. Eileen, I'm gonna invite you to just see, what if you took on this persona and actually inhabited it, found that part in you, and continue 2 more minutes.
I feel very deeply connected to this. And I think that the reason why we're in this place that feels impossible is because we're making it impossible. And I almost feel like I can't bear to think about it or even say it out loud because it's the murder of hope. And there's something inside of me that says that we can't afford to lose that. So Instead, I stuff it down. And instead, I bear witness silently. But I know that the anger and the sadness that I feel, it too doesn't disappear just because I stuff it down. And if I'm feeling it, and I know that I'm connected to everything else in this world, then I know that everything else in this world has been feeling it, and I'm just feeling that because I'm a part of everything else. So the ideas come to me more as questions. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Because if we don't change direction, if we don't move away from the current that we're creating every day with every choice to sit back, every choice not to do, to the same effect of every choice to do something destructive. I mean, it all helps move the current away from where we can be and where I think we're meant to be. If we don't change it, then we will die in every sense of the word, not just the literal.
Thank you. Thank you. And everybody, again, just let those words really land and notice what happens in you as they're spoken. Yeah. How were you listening? What were your assumptions about the speaker in either case? What were the judgments you were making towards each of these courageous women as they were speaking? Whether the judgments were positive or negative, what were the inner judgments and opinions that you were holding for their characters? What did it feel like to receive them in yourself? And how much in love with them were you while they were speaking? How much was your heart open or closed? That's the real question of all questions. Was I loving her as she spoke? So what I'm pointing again and again to is the inner state in you, regardless of what's happening outside. Right? Come to center means live from that place in you. How are you being in this moment? How are you being in relation? So I'd love to hear from some of you. How did that land? Maybe we'll take reflections from Eileen and Ozioma once you guys all share. Who would like to speak? Just unmute yourself.
So I felt that the points that I would agree with, I was open to, and the points that I basically disagree with were completely blocked. feeling towards the person was depending on my existing belief. What resonates with me and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Suparna, for that honesty.
My instant reaction when Ozioma was talking was was to smack her in the face. I mean, and you know, I almost, I felt like puking. I mean, that grand positive view of the world, as though everything's going right. I mean, how can one think that way? So that was the very intense reaction physically. And when Eileen was speaking, it felt as though she was just dropping on me. And I felt this need to hold her so that she wouldn't fall and hurt herself. There was something that was a lot of sadness and grief in her, which was just flowing out, and I just felt very sad for her. I would have liked to use the word compassion, but it was not as grand as that.
So what was the judgment or story you were believing about Eileen in that moment?
Pity.
May I offer you something a little more challenging?
Like what?
Well, if I tell you, then I'll have to offer it to you. Yeah, like, were you buying some part of her story as helpless? Like, were you projecting?
Yes.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right. So this is really important, you guys, in the collective power dynamics, right? In the way that we relate. If you've heard of this framework before, it's the drama triangle, the victim, perpetrator, savior, right? So just everybody take a second, just feel which role were you projecting onto the speaker and which role were you taking on in yourself. So just feel like, if Eileen is speaking and I think she's helpless and I want to help her, right? There's a part of me that goes into savior, trying to save her, right? And am I with her when I'm doing that? Or like persecutor, like, you're stupid, you're wrong, and you're dumb, and I'm not listening, right? So how am I feeling underneath that? Like, so just check in. What are the roles that you take on in these kinds of conversations? Is this making sense to anybody? Please feel free to ask me questions. You guys are like so nice and quiet today. So just, yeah. Because those are the patterns that we repeat, right? And these are deep-rooted patterns in us. They come from our families, even ancestral lineage. Like, there are roles that we're more comfortable inhabiting and roles that we're less comfortable inhabiting. So now the golden question: was anyone able to hear behind their words the truth and the untruth? Could you feel like both, yeah, this is right, and it's not as absolute? So just feel the texture of that. It's hard, right? It's challenging to remember that this is not the only, but how did that go? Cool. Reflections from anyone else before we move to Eileen and Ozioma to hear from them.
I just wanted to bring up this thing that was constantly going on in my head when I was listening to both. It was always a yes, but. Always a yes, but. Constantly. I mean, it was just relentless.
So let's just feel that, guys. Yes, but. And I know this is colloquial, but feel the difference between yeah, but, and yes, and. Yes. And, okay. Yeah, just feel that. So as we listen, right, what I'm pointing to is it's impossible to really listen if we're in a state of defending in ourselves. It's impossible to both be heard and hear if we're defending. Sorry, Suparna, did you say something?
To add something, that there was a constant narrative that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
There is them, but in your mind there is another narrative that is going on while you're listening. So how much are you actually listening and how much are you listening?
Yeah. Great question. All right, so we have 17 minutes and I want to do two things. So I want to hear from both Eileen and Ozioma, and then we're going to do an exercise where we can actually test what it feels like on the other side. So yeah, how was that for you, beautiful women?
Should I go? Oh, it was tough. It was tough. I think when I was just kind of performing it versus truly embodying it, it definitely was. I felt the difference, and then afterwards, I felt really sad. Like I had like tears because I was like, I know there's people who really believe this, and I've heard those people. I've seen them in my threads, even on LinkedIn and Facebook, everywhere. There are these people. I know these people.
Mm-hmm.
I work with these people. And it just made me really sick and very sad and very frustrated. So there was this bit of like just sadness that, sadness, not for them that they exist, but sadness that this is true, that this belief is true.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was listening to Eileen, there was a moment where I was actually more connected to the first version than in the second. When she dropped in, when I was listening to the second, I noticed that it was like falling over me and I wasn't able to let it in because it felt like, and that's probably some of my own judgment, it felt like, and the fee, and it's so weird, right? Because I'm a woman and I'm also an emotional woman, but like hearing the diatribe of the woman kind of, and it did for me, I was listening as if she wasn't coming from a space of power, but coming from a space of complaint and a space of like, oh, the world, as opposed to, and so that's what I just noticed within me is I was more connected the first time than the second time. And a lot of it was because it felt, I was listening into the complaint and the frustration and the whining about the condition of the world. And so that's just what I noticed was coming from me. And my own self-judgment about like, oh, I'm not embracing women's, emotion. Because I am also a woman. I welcome women embracing their emotion. But I think it was, and that's what I've been noticing about this whole thing. It's like, there are these cues that we respond to. And if someone doesn't show us the cues, and it's like these cues have to be present for me to then release my love or whatever. And that's, so I'm working through that, but I've noticed that that's what's coming up is like, there's these like prerequisites for me to then say, I can love you. I can welcome your expression. And I know I have to do my own deeper work to continue to move through that as we all do. But I really noticed that. Yeah. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Oh, that's beautiful. All right, Eileen.
Yes, and which is, it's so perfect that came up in this conversation. That is the foundational tenet of all improvisation, by the way. I know you know that, but we do a lot of training where we go from a place of yes, but to yes, and what is that, so in that work, it's just fundamental. But to go into this experience, I felt too when watching Ozioma, like at first, there was this, I felt her pain in having to take on that role. That's what story I told myself was, this woman is in pain, which immediately made me feel for her. And just to tune into the struggle, I kind of wound up finding myself tuned into the struggle. And then, you know, in part 2, there was a sense of relaxing. But in between those, I saw something else emerge. You had asked us to, you know, listen for what is true and untrue. And I honestly believe there is truth in both of these statements. And if we had been asked to switch now and do the opposite, which I feel like would also be illuminating too, you know, the things that I would come up with to say were very similar to what you were demonstrating, which is to find your way into what's true, you know. But then I wasn't sure. So my confusion was, are you still asking her to adopt the beliefs that are not hers,
Mm-hmm.
or to connect?
How did it feel in you?
I think for me, what I felt like was confused and distracted, because I'm like, I don't know what. And I feel like that was then my association with how do you execute on that when you don't even know what it is. So I felt there was a connection more to embodiment, and I was able to, I think, take in what Ozioma was saying more like it was really coming from a true place. And then for me, I felt very connected in what I was saying, even though for me, I'm conflicted because I have this feeling that we may need to have a crash and burn before we can rise from these ashes, or that there's some divine beauty that's going to, that we can focus on this. But then when you paused and you asked me to go to another place, I already felt completely connected to what I was saying. So I questioned myself in that moment, like, okay, where else can I go that feels truthful? And I thought, well, this is really depressing me, even just staying focused on it, feeling very doomsday, even though I do feel that the darkness is real. There wasn't anything I said that wasn't real for me. It's just not the whole picture. As you said, there's truth and untruth. So when I allowed the emotions to get to the point where I was more like they were leading me, rather than I was just expressing with them, then I think I went to this place that everybody that's spoken so far has remarked felt like a victim. And for me, I didn't feel like a victim, but what I felt like was it's hard for me to express through this pain. It's just hard for me to express through this pain, let alone be heard.
Well, that's interesting. You know, it's kind of like,
just one second.
Sorry.
Let's just let that land just for a second. Just the last 2 sentences she just left us with. Ooh. Thank you. Yeah, thank you both, and thank you everybody. It's hard for me to express, let alone feel. Is that what you said at the end right there?
To express through the pain, let alone be heard.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's how we're often feeling, no matter which side of the equation we're on. Yes, my lovely Anita, what did you have to add? I'd love to hear.
Whoa, sorry for interrupting. I was like, it kind of like hit me like a spark when Eileen was saying about pain, and then the idea came to me about the idea of perhaps finding out or learning, asking somebody why they feel the way they do versus why they think the way they do. And if you can get to a understanding of their emotional trigger, what's causing them to form their views of the world and their moment in time, then that could be a way to start to get to some kind of common ground. understand if pain is motivating them, or fear, or anger. You know.
I might offer you something on that, which is assume that all three are always on. Assume that we're all coming from the same place and we all have, like, if you look at the screen right now, everybody, can you see each face and just feel this with me? I'm going to speak sentences to describe each person. Just feel the truth and the untruth of it. So this person is human just like me. This person has gone through struggles that I can't even fathom. I don't even know the kind of pain that they've endured in their life. This person has gone through the same kind of struggles that I have in their life. So just pick one person and just really feel this. This person feels hurt just like me. They feel pain just like me. They love deeply just like me. They were born and they're going to die just like me. They want to be heard just like me. They want love just like me. They want to be seen and welcomed and cherished and celebrated just like me. They don't want to justify themselves just like me. They're lovable just like me. Look at the faces on this call. Okay, so Shiva and Shakti both have been with me, and some part of structure slipped away. But we have 5 minutes left. And I'm curious, is there anyone who needs to leave exactly in 5 minutes on this call? Okay, well, that's juicy. So I'm going to lead something that I think will be really valuable in integrating all the places that we've been. And I'll do the dirty. I'll be the volunteer. And I'm going to speak to, let's do this as a group. What's the most triggering question, right? I'm going to ask you 3 options. One is the world is going in the right direction or the wrong direction. The other is I am responsible for collective healing. I am not responsible for collective healing, right? What's the another one? And the third is just really simple. My deepest wish for the world is blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak on whatever you guys tell me to for 5 minutes. And I'm going to have you listen to me as if I'm a total fool. I'm completely wrong. I'm not worthy of love. Basically an idiot sitting here preaching to you, right? So any votes for number 1? No votes. 1 vote? 1 vote for number 1. Okay, number 2. 2 votes for number 3 votes for number 2. Okay, and anyone for number 4? My deepest wish for the world. 1. Okay, so it's number 2, which is I'm responsible for collective healing. Yes? All right, so I'm going to speak to both sides of that. Maybe I'll do 2 minutes each. So the first time, I just want you to listen to me in the same way that we'd been through before, right? How do you experience it in your body? Where my words land? Can you track some attention on where the words are coming from and how it feels between us in conversation while listening for truth and untruth? Yes? And how am I feeling? How am I being when I'm listening? And this time, I want you to take the worst judgments you have of all those people who just don't get what you're trying to say. I am that. Okay? So use the trigger for you and project that onto me. Cool? Everybody got it? You have your you have your armor to listen with? Okay. I'm going to speak on collective listening is my responsibility. Collective healing is my responsibility. The change I want to see in the world really starts with me. I know I'm just one person in the world, but I really, really know deeply that I'm able to have an impact on the world that I touch. Everyone I encounter, everyone I meet, I can have a real effect on their life. And when I look around and I see how much division there is in the world, like how many people are trying to be right and wrong and losing love and connection over it, I know that I can make at least a little bit of a difference in their life. I can help them experience deeper connection to themselves and each other just by showing up. I don't even have to do anything differently. I just have to be me, be open, show up with a hell of a lot of love, and just be there with them. And I know that that has a tremendous capacity to change the world that I live in. Collective healing is my responsibility because I am a part of this planet. I belong on this earth. I am a part of a really big network. And what happens to the world happens to me. I am responsible because I create the energy that the world experiences by my interactions, by the way that I behave, by the way that I meet you and the guy on the street. It's totally my doing. I'm so responsible for it. I benefit from the privilege of having an education, money, blah, blah, blah. I'm responsible because I make choices that affect not just me, but everyone that I know. All right, cool. Take a minute, feel what that felt like in you, right? All right. And let's reset, let's shake that off whenever you're ready. Like all the judgments, all the like projections, the negative image, what an idiot, he's talking about bullshit. Let that fly away, just fly away. And I think I'm actually gonna argue the same thing and I'm gonna have you listen with different ears, okay? So when you feel like all of it is off, take it off, spread it down to the ground. And then come back to me. And the new set of instructions for your energy field are such. I'm going to say the same stuff again, differently a bit, but you're going to listen differently. You're going to listen to me as if I am so enlightened. Like I am the person holding the answers to all the questions that you're looking for. Like, I am the key to this puzzle. Like, all the positive projections that you hold, like whatever you hold sacred, wisdom, compassion, like I am that. Okay, so you're going to listen to me as if you're listening to whatever you hold sacred and divine, whether it is like the universe is speaking through Ishita, or like God is here, and like, or like the leader we need for these changing times is here, right? Like whatever it is for you. Okay, cool, everybody got it? All right. And same thing, how am I listening, right? How am I being while I'm listening? And oh, I'm listening to God herself, look. Okay, cool, here we go. 2 minutes. Collective healing is my responsibility. The way I live, the way I choose, the way I meet every person in my life is an intrinsic part of the healing of this whole ecosystem. It is my responsibility to create the world that I want to see. And I know it starts with me. For it, I show up in the world and I do my part. I know that I have been given so much in my life, so much. Even though I've come from deep struggle, even though I've had to really fight the odds to get where I am now, I know that I have been given so many blessings, and it is my duty, it is my responsibility to share. It's my responsibility to show up in service of not just myself, but you and me and everyone we know. The way I live my life, just the way I breathe, just the way I sit here, just the way I meet you, has a profound effect on the immune system of our whole. I know that whatever is happening inside me is happening to the whole world because we are intrinsically connected. I know that what's happening to the whole world is happening to me. So I cannot disconnect because I am always inherently part of this. Whatever is happening to you is happening to me, my friend. Your pain is my pain. Your joy is my joy. Responsibility for the actions of the past are in my capacity to heal. There was wrong done to so many people, and I know that I was a part of that wrongdoing. And I can show up here and take responsibility for my part. That's how healing starts. For me and you and everyone we know. Okay. So just take a second and feel how that felt. And just notice what the difference was in the first part and the second part. And how would it be if you were listened to in these ways? And how would it be if you could listen to whoever was in front of you in each of these ways? All right, now I'm going to shut up and leave the floor open for reflections. I'd love to hear how you experienced both those costumes, shall we call them.
So the first one, I thought you were an idiot.
Will you come closer to your mic, Suparna? I really want to hear you.
Yeah. The first one, I really thought you were an idiot. The second one, I totally believed you completely. So, but there was a difference in the way you spoke and put it across in both the instances. Also, there was, you told us to see where we are coming from and what is our mindset as to who we are listening to. So that makes all the difference as well, whether we're willing to accept or we're not willing to accept what is being said. So maybe next time I want to be heard, I can be a little more articulate and a little less judgmental when I'm talking as well. A little more compassionate in what I'm trying to put across. I can't help what the other person and what their preconceived notions of me are. But I can, when I'm talking, I can at least put myself in the right spot and speak from there.
Beautiful. Ooh. Who else?
I think for me, the big difference was this underlying unconscious intention. When the first time you were speaking, it was about validating my perception of you as being incompetent. So I was hunting for proof, and this idea of when we already assume we don't agree with the other person, or that we think that they're a fool, as you said, a total fool, that there's this implicit intention to discredit and dismiss them. That's what I was feeling the first time. It's like, okay, I'm listening for the things I can say bullshit. I'm listening for the things that I can say false, not really, whatever. Just it's like a box. Whereas the second time, when there's this assumption that there is common ground, common belief, or maybe even that there might be, there's acceptance, and that there's listening without predetermining the validity of what you're hearing. You give it more credit. And that feels more receptive, more flowing, more open. It feels more like I can be with you, like I can see who you are or feel you or know you in some kind of way. And then, maybe you're being open with me, whereas the other one feels like a wall.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's so beautifully noted. You guys have just brought out everything that I wanted to. Hey, if we're listening for connection instead of being right, how does that change how we're listening? In my house, we often will fight each other to be right, and we'll just fuck the love. We don't need that. I want to be right, And someone on this call, I don't remember who, maybe it was even Hari, someone who said it very gorgeously. Said there are now conditions on my love for you. Was it you or so? Was it Yoma? Yeah.
Yeah, I was mentioning that in terms of feeling like there's conditions whether or not I can.
Right. So just what happens when there are no conditions for you to love me? I said the same thing, literally. I mean, not exactly, but it was the same sentiment, right? The same person still doing her thing in the world, and how are you receiving it? How much are you loving it? And also, like, you guys have been very beautiful in pointing out, like, the judgments of ourselves get in the way of connecting with each other, right? So it's not just you judging me as good or bad, it's also you judging yourself. And in the space of the second one, I'm curious, like, who was, you know, judging, or I don't know how to say, who noticed a wall in them that wouldn't let me through? Anyone? Go ahead. Tell me your experience.
Yeah, I felt that in the first one, there was definitely that wall, and I was like pulling back. And in the second one, I was like, okay, yes, yes, because I was obviously primed to listen to you with looking and listening for the yes.
Mm-hmm.
So listening to what's going to work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there are things that didn't work for me that I also threw out because I was focused on saying yes
Mm-hmm.
and affirming you. And so I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that also happens, that, you know, when we're primed to listen for the yes, we'll throw out everything else, like love, right? Truly, like love. I'll throw out everything else. Doesn't make sense just because I want to love you, right? Whereas if I want to hate you, if I want to dislike you, if I want to see only the color of your skin or your gender or whatever it is, I'm going to now listen for the barriers, or listen with the barriers up, to not allow.
And because I have 2 minutes, I'm going to really ask you to check this out, right? Feel in your bodies, just close your eyes and check out the kinesthetic state. The kinesthetic state in yourself when you assume that I'm an idiot. Like, what does the body feel like? And no responding, just feeling. Yes, gorgeous. That whatever I'm saying is just like, stupid. And now check out the kinesthetic state. You can shake this out. Just feel like how you felt when you assumed that I was like the person who was the answer to the puzzle, the person who was worthy of your respect, your listening, your attention, right? Someone with divine authority. What is the kinesthetic state in which you are? Like, how open is your heart? How open is your mind? Is your gut defending? Is it contracted? Is it relaxed? What's happening in your body? Just check it out. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Like, what would it be like if we could speak and listen to each other as if we are God? What does it feel like to speak and listen from and to God? If all there is just this, if you and me and everyone we know, if I could meet you and speak to you as if you are God, as if God is speaking through me. Whatever you call that thing that makes the whole world go around. You can call it the universe, nature, physics, I don't care. But the thing that's the source of life. How would that be? What would be possible for the world if we had conversations from that place? That's what collective healing looks like through listening to me. Thank you for spending a really rich 90 minutes with me. I feel like I already know and love all of you, which is true. I made the mistake, because I'm not that handy with Zoom, that I didn't like get your email addresses, and Truth and Reconciliation has requested that I send them those. If you're comfortable with it, please just put your email in the chat box now, and I will add you to my mailing list where I do things like this quite a bit, actually. And yeah, if you have any questions, complaints, like experiences, I want to hear from you. I want to hear how it goes in the world when you step into your next conversation and you listen to them without putting conditions on them for your love. Right? That's the experiment I want you all to go out and play with, is the next time you have a conversation that's like, how can you be in love with the person and yourself while you're listening? Does that make sense? All right, so I'm gonna get cards and letters from all of you, your email address, how it's going, and what's working and what's not. And I'm happy to answer emails, phone calls, whatever. So reach me. And the next thing I want to tell you is I'm starting a podcast with another spiritual teacher who is, a powerhouse. And she's Black and beautiful and like comes from a really different background from me. So we often disagree with each other, and we're making a podcast out of this because we love being in each other's fields. It's called Unbecoming. And you can find us on Facebook. It's Unbecoming Podcast. We haven't uploaded anything yet, but it's coming soon. But the reason I think you'll enjoy it is because it's about listening, and it's about social justice and spirituality and the transformation of suffering into joy. And we're talking through the lens of current events. So find me. I'd love to hear from you. And if questions, write to me. Thank you all. Maybe, just one look at all the beautiful people who came today. Just take a look at these faces. Yeah. Thank you. Mwah. I'm gonna close the meeting. Thank you.